Across from Lloyd the cab driver is Father Stephen McGraw, a Catholic priest with ties to the ultra-secretive Opus Dei sect. Father McGraw was a former U.S. Department of Justice trial attorney for 5 years. He left that for the seminary, which he stayed in for 4 years until he became a priest 3 months before 9/11. He is a prime example of someone who admits they deduced the poles being hit and hitting the cab, rather than actually seeing it. He told us this personally when we interviewed him at his church. Here is the often cited quote from his account about the light poles.
The plane clipped the top of a light pole just before it got to us, injuring a taxi driver whose taxi was just a few feet away from my car.
Well, I had been a trial attorney for the Justice Department for about 5.5 years, and then had gone into the seminary for 4 years to study for the priesthood. Was ordained in 2001 in June, and this was about 3 months after my ordination as a priest when I found myself on the way to a graveside service, some prayers to say at the graveside at the Arlington National Cemetery, which is right near the Pentagon. And I basically made a turn too early on my way to the service at Arlington National and ended up right in front of the Pentagon on Route 27, which goes just right in front of the building.
You didn't even know it was the Pentagon.
I didn't even know it was the Pentagon. I mean, I've grown up in this area, but I just am basically never over there. Besides, you can't really tell it's five-sided anyway, so I didn't even know it was the Pentagon. But I was just in traffic. My main focus was that I was late for this service, and we were stuck in totally standstill traffic, just sitting dead still on the highway with the rest of the cars right in front of the lawn there. I was in the left lane of the highway of Route 27 on the way with the Pentagon on my right. So I was on the traffic side of traffic closest to the Pentagon. And basically, without warning, there was just the sensation of something coming over the top of us. I didn't see anything in that first instant, but it was just a sense of something coming over the top of our cars, maybe about 20 or 25 feet. It seems the plane was so low that it hit a light pole that was just on the edge of the highway, on the far side there. Before it came over the highway, it clipped this pole, which I heard ended up being knocked over and hitting a taxi, which was near my car.
Now, do you remember which pole it was, or was it the entire pole itself, the large part, or was it a piece?
That's a good question. My recollection is vague on that point, but
You just saw it bounce over and just kind of...
I didn't actually see the light pole go over or anything. No, I believe I later saw the evidence of the pole having been knocked over,
Okay.
And I think that was just that after the fact saw the evidence. Piece of the light pole. I think I may have only recalled seeing the top part of the pole, so maybe that was the only part that actually got knocked off. It may not have been the entire pole getting knocked down, but there was that. I think that may have been the first noise, perhaps, in that first second that was sensed, the noise of clipping the light pole, because then the next incident was simply, I guess, the natural reaction looking over to my right, because the plane came right over, and I did see the plane as it came in. My recollections are simply that it came in somewhat controlled and straight. I mean, my sense was that it was coming in for a crash landing. I remember when I was about 14, the Air Florida plane crashed into the 14th Street Bridge right here in Washington, my sophomore year in high school, and just again a tragic accident just shortly after takeoff, and the pilot that was, I guess, the best he could do. And so that was my sense, although it seemed so strange, crash, but just that he had, whatever had happened, that he was just making that crash landing, but just did it right in front of the building, and then crashed into the building immediately.
Did it hit the trailers? There was trailers, I suppose, that were out. There was a generator trailer, and then were there other trailers that it hit, that it flew into?
I did not see anything like that. I will say that I have a memory, which was, you might say, revived after the fact, of the plane bouncing on the lawn before it went into the building. That came to me basically after actually hearing other witnesses, hearing of other witness testimony. I heard that other witnesses had reported that the plane had bounced, had hit the ground before it crashed into the building. And then when I heard that, I thought, it sort of provoked something, and I thought, yeah, that's the image. That's the image I remember having. I think I kind of had the image at first, and then it seemed kind of strange that it would actually have bounced first in that split second, and then it kind of came back to me more after people said that. I thought, well, yeah, that is my impression of what happened, that it bounced first hit the ground at some point, hit the ground and then went into the building. The memory that was clearest that I had from the very beginning, which never left me, was just after the crash, the plane just disappearing, into the building basically, just disappearing, but then just these two, out of the top two windows of that side of the Pentagon, just these two huge billows of like fire coming out of the top two windows. They were, the plane I guess came in lower, but somehow it seemed like it was those top two windows more or less in the middle of the building that the flames just came billowing out, and at the same time as the explosion, everything. There's those two billows of flame. It seemed out of the top two windows was what I recalled.
Okay, and you immediately after the plane had crashed, you got out of your car about 45 seconds later, right?
Perhaps about 45 seconds later. Yes, my car was in the left-hand lane, and after that initial moment when I seemed to remember the gasp, around me from the other cars, no one, of course, was going anywhere in the traffic, so it was in a sense easy enough to just grab my prayer book for the sick and the dying, my holy oils for anointing the sick and the dying, and my purple stole, which priests wear when they're ministering to the sick. And so I got out of the car and just left it there and walked across the one or two lanes of traffic, whatever it was. I was always in the left-hand lane. Walked across the rest of the traffic, and just went over to the guardrail and just was on the lawn there, maybe in the first, after about a minute or so, I guess.
And you actually saw it enter the building?
Yes.
When it came in?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I definitely watched as it went into the building.
It's important to note that light poles 3 through 5 were perfectly within Father McGraw's field of vision, but he only makes reference to the light pole that hit the cab that he actually deduced. His account is often cited as witness to the light poles being clipped, but you heard him just admit to us that he did not see any light poles clipped and merely deduced this after the fact. This is the case, although he claims the cab was a few feet from his car. Interestingly, he says he grew up in the area, was a Justice Department attorney for 5 years, and claims he didn't know the building he was next to was the Pentagon. Why then would he know where the 14th Street Bridge was, which is right next to the Pentagon? He admits he got out of his car within 45 seconds after the crash and crossed the guardrail to help console the dying and wounded. The problem is, Mark Ferrum, Navy Times photographer, remembers it differently.
I was at the Navy Annex, up the hill from the Pentagon, when I heard the explosion. When the explosion happened, I ran down the hill to the site and arrived there approximately 10 minutes after the explosion.
Then on a military press site,
he literally had the stole in one hand and a prayer book in the other, and in one fluid motion crossed the guardrail, said Mark Ferrum, a reporter from the Navy Times, who witnessed McGraw in the first moments after the crash.
How can Mark Ferrum witness Stephen McGraw cross the guardrail within 45 seconds of the crash when he wasn't there for 10 minutes? One or both of them is either remembering inaccurately or lying. Opus Dei member FBI agent Robert Hansen was found guilty of spying for years. He was good friends and parish members with fellow Opus Dei member Louis Freeh, the then director of the FBI, who many claimed helped in the Oklahoma City bombing cover-up. We can't ignore the air of mystery and political intrigue surrounding the Opus Dei sect of the Catholic Church. But nevertheless, Father McGraw looked me dead in the eye and without blinking said, "Yes, I saw the plane enter the building."